Welcome, boys. Good to have you both, and it's good to see you both. I'm sorry we're not in a pub together. That's the only place in my head this would make a lot more sense to me. So, but good to see you both, Freddy and Trev. Welcome aboard, mate. Firstly, hey, Freddy, I'll speak to you first. Can we jump straight in and tell us how the name Freddy came in? Can we just jump straight to that so we can call you Freddy for the rest of the day?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having us on, mate. So the nickname came from my younger days when I was playing footy at Melbourne. So I had a couple of seasons there in the under-19s and managed to play a handful of reserve grade games. And back in the 40s, a full forward by the name of Fred Fanning was a leading goal kicker at the club, won the Coleman. Well, there was no Coleman medal back then, but he's famous for kicking 18 goals in one game of a VFL game of footy. So his name's on the locker. Mine's not, but they said, do you have a nickname? And I said, not really. And they said, we'll just call you Fred. And it just stuck. So, yeah, that's how it came about.
Mate, that's not a bad story. And now I knew you were a handy footy player, but that's pretty impressive too, mate, that you did go that far with it. And were you full forward, did you say? Did you play in the forward?
No, actually, no? I actually played in the ruck, mate. A 6'4" ruckman.
Yeah.
Had a bit of a vertical leap back in those days, but that's now long gone.
Run like a gazelle, I bet, Freddy.
A big body too, mate. You forgot to say you're a big body as well. You didn't mention that.
Yeah, the big body. I'm trying to get back to playing weight, mate, back when I was in my mid-20s. So it's a battle. It's a constant battle, especially in the industry we're in, but we're getting there slowly.
And Trevor Howard, welcome to you, mate. Big Trev, I call you, and Howie.
Fitzy, can we just start with a sound check, mate? So we just...
Yep. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, that's in. Well done. What brand is that, mate? What are we drinking?
It's a Carl Draft.
Yeah, good work. And it is beer o'clock over there, so you're more than welcome to get into it.
It's 3 o'clock.
I'm not far
by now.
I'm not far off getting one myself. I did go on a rugby trip last weekend, so I'm still not ready for another beer yet, but won't be far off.
Sorry to interrupt because you were about to talk about me. So
I was, mate. Welcome, Trev. Your nickname's Big Trev or Howie for the obvious reasons, mate. Big body, a movie star in another life. I think we've called you before as well. So welcome aboard, mate.
Thanks, mate. Actually, talking about the big body, didn't you and your rugby league blokes, you tried to get me to play that game when I was over there?
Yeah, you would have been handy. Yeah, you would have been handy in the second row, I think. Yeah, and Freddy would have been in the front row. Freddie would have been a front rower for sure. In rugby league, we're talking.
Full back, mate. You don't have to tackle too much at full back, do you?
No, that's right.
Just stand and point.
Boys, main reason for getting on is to check in. COVID's been a very extended experience for you two, based in Melbourne. Both have sizable businesses that you're in control of, and I think it's been obviously a very challenging period for Melbourne Victorians in general, but particularly Melbourne. I just thought I'd check in and see how you both have handled it and what sort of experiences you took out of it. So we'll start again with you, Freddie, if it's okay. Can you maybe just check in and just give us a quick overview of what the last, 7 or 8 months of COVID has been, mate? How'd you go?
I think it was the week after Queen's birthday weekend where we started, mate. And pretty much we put together a subcommittee, I guess, within our business just to talk all things COVID and look at that sort of stuff. So that was sort of done by my sister-in-law, Belinda, who's our managing director. So she was taking lead of that. It sort of was just sitting there, and then come sort of, we sort of looked at it and thought, well, we're going to see a fair old downturn in our business. So we said to the staff that we pulled their work days back to 4 days a week, and on the 4 days pay. And out of the 110 staff we had, 99% of them were on board. Some of them were fearful of losing their jobs, which is understandable. But as a family run and owned business, we took the thing that we don't want to cut staff. We want to keep them on and not, we should just look after them. That's what we wanted to do. So we did that up until June. Then we looked at our figures in June, and it didn't go backwards. We didn't meet budget, but we didn't go backwards. So everyone came back on 5 days a week post June 30, and then we back paid the staff the days that they missed from March as well. So even though they were working 4 days, we felt it was upon us as the owners of the business to take care of the staff. So that's what we did there.
Fantastic, mate. And how did you go with the engagement piece? Like, you met via Zoom, I assume, or Teams, or one of those online video conferencing. Did you get involved in all of that technology pretty quickly, and was that a big step for you, or are you guys already in that way? Because you've got multi-sites anyway, so do you probably use that technology to some extent already, or?
We did a little bit, but not as much as what we are now, and it's probably actually opened our eyes up a little bit that we probably don't have to travel as much to
same
meetings with staff. So
yep.
That's probably been a win if you're looking for small little wins there. And yeah, it's one of the things for the staff is that we sort of get together and have our regular meetings with staff, and we've got a sort of a health and wellbeing sort of, it's not a division, it's just Alison Mays, who works in our business. She's head of people and culture with our business, so that falls under her banner, and my wife works with her, and so they're always looking out for the staff and doing little things on the way through to make COVID in what we were with lockdown a bit more fun and enjoyable and bearable, because mentally it took a toll on some of our staff, but we've managed to stay in touch with those guys and listen to their problems, put them in touch with helplines through Steadfast, where we're members. So Steadfast have been pretty good with all that assistance as well, which has been great.
Yeah, that's good to know, and I've seen some good communication from them, to be fair. Before I jump into you, Trev, on your experiences, Freddy, just on the client side of things, like how did that go? Because I mean, I could only imagine for that extended period of time, a lot of your customers would have been through a very challenging period to almost standstill in certain industries. How have you gone with your engagement with them? What did that look like? Was it very, very on the front foot? Did you get into what was the experience like?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that actually teaches our younger staff to actually have a conversation with a client rather than hide behind a keyboard.
Yeah.
A lot of communication's always done via email, but something what we've just experienced is that we had to do that in a personal way. And so we made the effort to ring every client that we thought may be affected, and the ones that weren't affected that we didn't hear from, we still rang them anyway, just to see how they were doing. So every client within our book, in a commercial sense, excuse me, got a phone call just to check in, see how they were doing, can we do anything for them, and just educate them through the process of not carving up their insurance program, because they've probably still got, chattel mortgages and things over equipment. So you can't cut your contents and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was just opening their eyes up a little bit more about it. It probably made them think about their insurance a lot more, which was good. But just educating them through the shortfalls of cutting the guts out of it, just to ensure that, they saved a little bit of money on premium, which wasn't really what it was all about. They just had to make sure they were still protected and move forward there. So, touch wood, we haven't been hit by a lot of clients that have gone out of business. A few, yes, but not a lot, which has been a bit of a blessing for us.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's uncanny how similar your experience is with our business. I guess we're similar businesses. Yours is bigger, but it's very similar to the way in which we approached it. Trev, your business is a different model. You're an authorised representative model, and as such, you've got customers who are effectively your authorised representatives, and then you've got the end customer as well. So I can only imagine your challenges would be similar but different in a way. How did your experience go, mate? What was the model for you, and how did it go?
I'm not a big fan of Zoom. So the funny thing was, in terms of sort of tackling it from the start, was I didn't mind them, but I'm probably fortunate enough in a way. There's 35 corporate ARs, and my preference from the outset was to have individual conversations with people and give them a call, because certainly in the early stages there was certainly a lot of anxiety. And the other thing that people forget in all of this, we just come off the back of the bushfires, and we're at a hardening market. So we had a situation where if it wasn't tough enough and getting tougher, we were still recovering from the bushfires, and then we had this thrown upon us. And generally what I found was that most people sort of put their head down and bum up for a while. So they kind of needed a bit of an outlet from that point of view. So when I'm saying the authorised reps, so at the time, my home office was my bedroom. So I just used to sit up there on the bed and and just ring one at a time. I wouldn't tell them what I was doing. In terms
were you wearing clothes or not? Let's just go with the obvious question. Were you dressed?
Well,
because I do know you well, Trev. I know you too well, mate.
Sometimes you need to motivate people, as you know, Fitzy. So, but the point of it was sort of involving a lot of people. It was personal preference, but a lot of these people we've been with, they're all individual small business owners. We've been with them from the start. So all of their issues are their own. So it was never going to be a situation where they were going to want to talk about it in a public forum. So the preference was to do that. And the same with the staff as well. Mm. So we had 2 new staff, one start last year and then another one start this year. So in terms of that, the challenge was you realise how much work gets shared around in terms of that sort of thing in a normal working environment. So in some ways we kind of had to streamline and sort of petition the work because it's very hard to sort of bounce stuff around. But generally, most of the conversations with the ARs were about understanding what risks there were with their clients and where they were, and kind of liking ourselves a little bit to like a Bunnings store. So you've got your truck people over there and your SME people over there and your micro SME people. Mm. So, for example, we had a couple of people that, say, specialised in the land, did a lot more of that landlord space, and that was hell for them, and certainly anyone in retail or hospitality. We had one guy that's a Greek guy, so it was a double banger. So he had Greeks that did rentals and he had Greeks that owned chip shops. So they had the whole BI sort of dilemma and the shutting down, plus all the properties that they owned. Suddenly rental default was an issue. So it was a bit of a nightmare, but we're sort of talking the way through. And it's but the whole process, it's like 6 months. And you say, I was watching The Block last night, and you know how everyone thinks on The Block, I'll go on that show because it's a challenge, and they thrive early, and then the next part they sort of settle into a bit of a routine, and they all end up bawling their eyes out in about four episodes from the end. And it's been a little bit like that down here in Victoria, to be honest. That everyone thought it was a challenge, it was great, and the next part sort of tested your skills and your just your motivation and your stamina, and then the last bit it's been hell. For a lot of people, so it's been pretty tough. So coming out the other side, it's encouraging to know that we're sort of coming out the other side. But in essence, what happened was the ARs just put their head down and concentrated. Off the back of the hardening market, effectively what happened was they were doing twice the amount of work for the same result through that period. So they're pretty exhausted, and it's good to sort of back out the other side.
It's fair to say then you're both feeling a little bit more relieved about what's recently been announced for Victoria and Melbourne in particular. Is that back to you, Freddy, probably for this one? Are you seeing some green shoots now? Things are starting to get to, well, I wouldn't say normal yet, but you can see yourselves getting out of it soon.
Yeah.
Get on the beers.
I mean, it's like one of those things, Fitzy. We have, being Metro Melbourne, we were sort of, I think it was about 10 weeks, Trevor, were locked up within a 5 kilometre radius of our homes. When I say locked up, you could go outside your house for an hour and all that sort of stuff. And so essentially we were in jail pretty much, but with a little bit more freedom, you could watch TV whenever you liked and you didn't have to worry about getting stabbed and all that sort of stuff. But I think, it's a
tough office you're in, Freddy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bad situation, but I think, I don't want to get too political, but it wasn't handled well compared to what the rest of the country did. So
it certainly looks that way from out here. Yep.
Yeah. So I guess one of those things is when you're taking people's liberties off them, that there's going to be some backlash. But like it's a bit like the Stockholm syndrome, lock them up and drill them in with this information, and then all of a sudden it gives you a bit of relief last week, and then they go, oh, geez, he's done a great job, but he hasn't. So he's not on his own. Like there's others involved in it, but that's one of the things. Like they're all celebrating, oh, we can get out and all that sort of stuff, but you quickly forget what's happened to get us to that point. And look, hopefully by the 8th of November we will be able to travel around the entire state, which would be nice, because I haven't, my wife hasn't seen her parents since the 12th of March.
Right. Yeah, that'd be frustrating. Yep.
So, that's tough. We were having family Zoom meetings, but it's difficult, because, obviously people talk over each other and all that, and it becomes a bit of a headache in the end. So you just sort of don't do them anymore. But, they miss us and we miss them. But it's just one of those things where if your family's not living within your 5K or your 25K radius, it's hard. It's really hard. And that's probably the biggest mental challenge. I was okay with everything up until probably maybe the start of September, and he still said that, you couldn't go and play golf, but, like I love playing golf, and, it's one of the most socially distant sports you could ever play, but, you just couldn't participate in it. And it just did not make sense to me whatsoever. And it still doesn't. Like, when it first was, we could play in pairs, but now we can play in fours, which is back to sort of normal.
Yeah.
Like the reasoning behind it, and, numbers, like when you get the numbers of deaths, and it's sad and all that sort of stuff, aged care was is where it was blossoming. It wasn't really outside of aged care and things of that nature. So like it's like insurers, mate. You can massage numbers to make them look how good or how bad you really want them to look. So it's been mentally, the last month's been really, really tough.
You just talk about social distancing in golf. If you hit straight down the middle, then if you and I play together, we will be very much socially distanced. I can guarantee you that. I've seen you play too, Trev. All right, we talk about the insurers then. So the industry, it's hard to define the industry in our case because there's so many different parts to it. But I was quite surprised to see how quick the bank industry got a united message out. And to be honest, I know there's government involvement there and whatnot, but they got united pretty quick and came out pretty. And they had to. I mean, let's find it. They without the banks, we're in a lot of trouble. But I was really impressed with, to be honest, how quick they got their united message out of their support initiatives. And I did challenge, nobody really listened to me, but I was just wondering where the insurance industry was in all that. And I say, look, I think the insurance brokers one-on-one were very quick to react, and I saw a lot of ad hoc messages coming out across social media platforms, LinkedIn, and those sort of things. And you could see that the brokers were getting on with what they do best, which is get close to their customers, no doubt. And both of you have reinforced that today. But your thoughts on the industry? Could it have done a little bit more in the collaborative sense, do you think, or is it just too hard?
Yeah, I think I'll go first, Freddy, if you like. I think that people look for in a time of crisis, you want leadership and you want information, really. So it doesn't really matter if you haven't made a decision. You want information. And the one thing that was sort of sadly lacking early in the piece was just that information. It's a shame in a way that we always get lumped with banks. And banks get a caning generally in sort of public image-wise, but they respond. And as a casual observer, everyone was deferring to the peak bodies, and then they were deferring to each other. So it was kind of the greatest frustration was, say, my situation, my position being in the middle, where the ARs were wanting answers because their clients were wanting answers of them, that we couldn't give them that information. It was waiting. And it was, as you pointed out, Fitzy, it was obvious because the banks had already come out with their plans for what they were doing and the concessions they were making for clients. And we were waiting. We were waiting, and I'm sure that everyone wanted to do it. And for whatever reason, I mean, others can explain why it happened. But that was we were last to step up, if you like, by a long way. When the banks had done their stuff early in the piece. And it was just, if it wasn't anxious enough and brokers as business owners worried about what the future of their business was going to be, but had no direction about where the industry was going. And it's just information. They can keep feeding it. They can keep sort of pumping it out there. And if it takes longer to make a decision, then tell people. But that was the greatest bit.
Freddie, anything else to add to that, mate? Or you in sync?
I think Trev summed up pretty well there, but I think one of the things very early was like the premium deferrals was a real issue for us, because the clients would hear about premium deferrals and things like that. But once you educate that client around, okay, so you've got just say it's a $5,000 premium, and you've got $15,000 worth of stock loss or whatever happens to your business, smash windows, and that bill's 15 grand. So they just say, well, okay, we'll pay you less the excess, less the premium you haven't paid, and then here's your payout. So they're no better off in the way their policy was. Like, the policy would respond, which it should.
Yep.
But it was still disadvantaging the client. So our advice to the client was the premium deferral is probably not the best model, but if you can.
Yep.
So we started working with the premium funders to say, look, can we defer rather than be 10 month, can we take it over 12 and
smooth it out a bit,
minimum payment and do it that way, because it's not hurting them so much. The insurer still gets their premium and all that sort of stuff, but they're not penalised if a claim was to occur on the way through, which was really going to disadvantage the client by however much premium they owed the insurer at that time. So we had to work with the funders more than the insurers, which was the wrong way about it, I think. So, yeah, that was sort of one of the own things. And when you sort of saw the premium deferrals, it was more of a marketing thing rather than trying to help, in my opinion. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah, I can see how you feel. We had obviously a little bit special in WA particularly, but even in our Queensland branch where it was a lot more relevant, we had very little, if any, taken on in the end. I think we looked at the bow wave impact of that as well, and we thought, I'm not sure this is a good idea. If you're going to struggle now, and in 6 months' time you're no better off, and in Victoria that would have been the case, then where do we land there? So we did talk through with a few customers, I'm sure we did, the deferral option, but it was definitely better off to try and maintain, consistency where you can. And insurance is an essential service too. I think we had to really focus ourselves on that too, because I think we're all looking at how can we, stop taking money out of someone's bank account right now. But the reality is there are essential things that you needed to maintain, and insurance is one of them. So most of our customers really accepted that, to be honest. I know WA again was a little bit better off because of how quick we got out of it. But let's move forward. Let's go to a more social subject for a minute. Trev, we couldn't go further than this than we already have, to be honest, and not talk about the footy. You've clearly dressed appropriately, and the Richmond Tigers, mate.
Fitzy, I couldn't fit in it. My COVID guts wouldn't let me in it.
No, fair enough. I can see that, but no, you can't. No, the footy boys. Did you enjoy the grand final out of Melbourne for the first time in our lifetime? Oh no, there was once in. Was it 89? Wasn't it? There was one in 89.
91.
But it was still in Melbourne. Yeah. But out of Melbourne for the first time in our lifetimes, and probably for the only time, you'd like to think, to be honest, that it is the only time we have to do this. What did you think, boys? Being very avid AFL football followers, and your team was in it, Trev. What did you think?
They may as well not played if you think about it. We're still premiers and Dusty's still a Norm Smith medal. So if they hadn't played the whole year, we'd still end up in the same position we are now.
Yeah,
that's me.
He's showing off.
It was no, and you probably could have said that there would have been an asterisk on whoever won the flag, except that we won it. It was just, you know what? To be honest, because it was in Brisbane and on a Saturday night, the only thing I'd say is it didn't feel like a grand final.
Yeah.
And it did feel a little bit weird until they brought the trophy out, and I've gone, oh, that's right, that's what they were playing for. Otherwise, it was a big Saturday night game of footy. But the fact they were able to play the comp throughout the year and keep it going was, I mean, I haven't known what to do for the last 5 days other than keep watching the replay. There's been footy on so much over the period, and Freddy would probably say the same, that footy's been about the only saving grace down here in Victoria because it's the only business that's kept running.
And the races.
Yeah. So with the boys at halftime, we went last year and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We watched the 2017. So the boys, we watched it Saturday night, and at halftime it was up in the air. So it was good to get the result. It was good they got all the way through, and can't wait for the next one.
Freddie, really. What do you think, mate? What do you think?
From a game perspective, I thought the game was great, but the night grand final, just not a fan of it.
Me either.
I guess if we're back to COVID normal next year and the season is what it is, then Trev and I will probably see each other at about 4 functions grand final week. And, like the whole, yes, I take my hat off to the AFL for what they did, but look, the night grand final just didn't cut the mustard for me at all. Like it just, you can't see Trev. I'm sure last year he was in Swan Street, probably on someone's building, chugging a beer and all that sort of stuff. And I just think if you play that night grand final, you miss out.
Yeah.
on people flowing out of the ground at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 100%.
And all that.
And it's
But
it's
you're
better for
forgetting about
families
the,
too. Better for kids.
Freddie, you're forgetting about the karaoke fest that was on before the game. Wasn't that fantastic?
Yeah, I didn't see the pre-game entertainment, thank God.
Well, people were singing slow covers of other people's songs. Other people who should have been there, like Powderfinger, other people were taking them off. So it was a little bit, but that's Brisbane trying to be classy, I suppose.
Well, obviously, Powderfinger are led by a great singer, my cousin Bernard. So things are going well there.
100%. Yeah, he's looking dead ringer for you too. Hey, one of the things about the industry is, and you just sort of touched on it, Freddie, in a way, is the social aspects of this industry, and this is how we met too. And Trev and I worked together in a previous life, but you and I met at an insurance function, and that was lucky enough to be overseas in New Zealand. I think it was the first time I met you. And we've been on a few things since then, golf things and whatnot. It's a really good industry, isn't it? Like I don't know if the younger generation really understand the opportunity in front of them, and I know maybe the trips and some of the social aspects may have sort of dried up a little bit at the moment as insurers go through, their economic challenges and whatnot. But it generally goes around in a circle. What do you think about the opportunity these young blokes have got? And I say young blokes, I mean gender non-specific here. The young professionals. Trev, probably start with you. It's a pretty social industry when you want it to be. What's your advice for the younger ones if they're in the industry? They may be in a little bit of a hurry. What do you say to them?
It's funny how you said it's a good industry we're in, because what time is it here? It's let's say it's 3:30 in the afternoon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have this running gag that when you're out for a long lunch and you get to about 3:30 in the afternoon and the guilt starts to creep in, so you all turn to each other on the table and say, it's a good industry we're in, isn't it? Yeah. Which is the equivalent of putting your arm around your best mate and saying, I love you. But, and that's why you stay there. But I think you're right, Fitzy, because people want to take a few shortcuts and think it's a little bit easier than what it is at the moment. So it's pretty easy to sort of get a couple of quals and get escalated through the ranks, but there's no substitute for hard work and there's no shortcuts. And I think that sometimes people, the younger people coming through are reaching for that next job title a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And can see it. And sometimes they haven't earned it. And sometimes I think they tend to hide behind their title a little bit too. There's a little bit of not necessarily sort of taking on those problems, I think. So the ones that will succeed in the long run, you can get success in the short term, but the ones that succeed in the long run are the ones who study hard and work even harder.
I agree.
And not just sort of look for that next, just immediately jump from accounts, assistant accounting exec, Australian accounting exec, Australian or senior one, and do that sort of stuff because it's not sustainable. They'll shift around and they'll potentially just want to move on because they'll realise after a while that approach is not sustainable. You got to work a lot harder.
And Freddie, we were lucky enough to go to overseas to, I think it was one of the best trips I've been on, the Queenstown trip with the great Dennis Morrissey and Chris Lynch and a few other awesome blokes that we know socially who are in the industry and still doing very good things. But, mate, those sort of things, they're special, aren't they? There's good trips, good opportunities.
Yeah, my eyes have certainly been open to what you can achieve in your career. I'm a qualified plumber. I was a plumber for 13 years and then I got involved in the family business. I married my wife, Sophie, and her father had an underwriting agency. So I became a risk surveyor for Concord underwriting agencies. And that was my introduction to insurance. Then HIH, which you blokes would obviously know really well, that happened. Yep. So FSRA came in. So the baggy plumber with the bum crack and all that managed to get his qualifications as an insurance broker. So I got into the industry that way. And you're right, it's one of the best industries you could ever be in because it's people orientated. And if you can deal with people and all different sorts of personalities, which you get in our industry, not only through people that you meet with your competitors, but also clients. But that's the beauty of it. I get up out of bed every day wanting to do something better. Every day is a different challenge. No day is the same. And I think that's the beauty of what we do. You don't get bored because something will always throw a curveball at you. You know, it's every day is different. And if you're looking for something to challenge you, then what we do is exactly the job that you should be after, because you get paid really well.
Yep.
You get to have a good time, but it's rewarding at the same time. Like, there's nothing better. Like, I hate seeing clients have claims, but there's nothing better than getting the right outcome for a client when a claim occurs.
Yep.
And to see the relief on their face and say, God, mate, if it wasn't for you, I'd be screwed. And,
100%.
That's the rewarding part of the job is, you know, basically what we do is we sell a little piece of paper, which is a promise, and that's all it is.
Yep.
But that promise is only as good when you deliver on when it comes to claim time. And that's the rewarding part of the job, which I really love. And I enjoy dealing with people on a day in, day out basis. It's good fun. And, you know, I'm glad I met my wife and I decided to make the jump from being a plumber because I wasn't enjoying my career as a plumber. And, you know, I love doing what I do at the moment.
Yeah, great story,
Fitzy,
Freddy.
I think lockdown's got to him.
Yeah. I just dropped into the NEBA conference a couple of times this week, and or a few more than that. But it was a little bit different experience because obviously, again, we weren't on the Gold Coast and doing this in person. But I did watch the segment with Dallas and John O'Mahony from Deloitte just talk about how they're trying to put some materialistic value into what we actually do, and what you just said then, Freddie, about what difference we make and the time it takes for a client to do that all on their own, and the fact that they probably can't, let alone the time it would take. So they're putting some material values to things. So that Deloitte report presentation was quite good. I think it's a good starting point because as an industry, mate, we don't tell people enough about those sort of experiences and how good we are at doing what we do. So I thought that was a good segue to what you just said then. So I'll recommend anyone that's listening to this to go and have a look at that Deloitte report because it is actually quite a good thing, and you could probably take bits out of it and use it in your own marketing, I would have thought, which I know you both are pretty good at. Boys, we're running out of time. This is supposed to be 15 minutes, but I think this one's going to be probably 15 minutes each, to be honest. But just on a social point, you know, really great to see you both. Looking forward to seeing you both in person. Where that is and when that is, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it'll be sooner rather than later. Great to see that you both managed and navigated through COVID so well. Not surprised at all. You're both very capable human beings and working in very quality organisations. And, you know, I knew that before I spoke to you, but it's good to be able to get both of your points of view on your experiences, but also your insights on how we've all performed during this interesting period. With a bit of luck, mate, we'll be all seeing our family over Christmas, and you know, in particular those who can't travel to see theirs, which you mentioned, Freddie, in particular, must be challenging. But you know, I'm in the same boat, so yeah, looking forward to seeing people soon. And enjoy the rest of your day, boys. And Freddie, I noticed you're drinking the water, mate, but I know there's a beer coming very shortly for you, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Fitzy,
yeah,
how
mate.
many points, mate? How many points do we get?
Well, I'm about 1,000 ahead of both of you, but I'll give you both 200 each for this because this is very top end of the media points table for sure. Is that okay?
For the viewers at home,
Like
Fitzy, Freddie and myself have a bet every year who can end up in industry publications.
Yeah.
The most over the year. It's called the Dally Brownlow Medal.
Yep.
Which, I mean, they're almost going to name the award after me one year, but you've taken it to another level, Fitzy. Having your own LinkedIn TV show, going on the radio. Yeah. This is manufactured, mate.
Nah.
It just Fitzy, Freddie, it's not fair, is it?
Trev, I think it's really not fair. It's almost as bad as, you know, a company inviting an industry magazine to come to their race day, and then all of a sudden that race day is in the industry magazine in the next publication. I wouldn't know who would have done that, Freddie.
Is that no good? Is that as bad as seeing the photographer from the industry magazine out for dinner in Adelaide and going over and paying his dinner on the way out and making sure the waiter
just for points, just to get points. See what happened? All right, boys. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks for your time. We'll catch up again soon, but this has been enjoyable. Always was going to be. Could have gone on for 3 hours though.
Mate.
See you, boys.
Thanks for having us, Fitzy. Cheers, mate. Good to see you, Trev.
See you guys.
You too, Freddie. Bye.
Boys.